The Secretary of State in Texas has announced that they're going to be conducting their own 2020 audit from Donald Trump's loss in the election. Now this of course comes right off the heels of when we just heard some results from Arizona's election audit. And the folks in Texas thought, I think we can do better somehow. So let's get into some of those details of how they're making themselves look this foolish. So the announcement came just hours after former President Trump, who carried Texas, demanded Texas Governor Greg Abbott back a bill to launch an election audit in the Lone Star State. So while Trump won Texas handily in November, as I just pointed out, he issued an open letter to Abbott on Thursday, repeating his unfounded claims of voter fraud and other irregularities in some counties in the state, and urged the governor to back the election audit bill in the Texas legislature's upcoming special session. So this is what Trump was saying in his letter to Abbott, demanding that he do what he needs him to do. Despite my big win in Texas, I hear Texans want an election audit, exclamation point. You know your fellow Texans have big questions about the November 2020 election, is what Trump said. Texas needs you to act now. Your third special sessions is the perfect and maybe last opportunity to pass this audit bill. Texans know voting fraud occurred in some of their counties. Let's get to the bottom of the 2020 presidential election scam, more exclamation points. It's like a sales job, which is exactly what it is. So the Secretary of State of Texas office said, quote, a full and comprehensive forensic audit is underway in Dallas, Harris, Tarrant, and Collin counties. President Biden won Dallas, Harris, and Tarrant counties. But also Trump did carry Collin County, and I'm gonna say it one more time. Trump carried the state. Instead, they're gonna run their audit there in Texas. I wanna show you just also what the Secretary of State did put out and what they're looking to get as far as support for this audit. This is from their website. Under existing Texas laws, the Secretary of State has the authority to conduct a full and comprehensive forensic audit of any election and has already begun this process in Texas's two largest Democratic counties. I'm sorry, he said largest Democrat counties and two largest Republican counties. Dallas, Harris, Tarrant, and Collin, as I pointed out. We anticipate the legislature will provide funds for this purpose. That's great. So, I don't know, I've been asking myself this question, and I have a couple of potential suggestions. What are they looking for?
Yeah, so first of all, as we explained earlier in the show, Arizona did an audit. In that case, Biden had narrowly won the state, and Trump obviously wanted to overturn it. And it was Trump loyalists who believed that the election was stolen that conducted the audit. It was just absurdly biased, right? And nonetheless, he came out saying, oops, Biden did win the election. In fact, he won 360 more votes than we realized. Now, if you repeat that in Texas, well, I mean, the only thing you can do is put Trump's win in jeopardy in Texas. So I'll tell you my theory on why Trump's asking for it anyway. But it reminded me of a professor I had in law school. We did moot court, and he was really good, and it stuck with me this whole time. Somebody else was in front of him, and one of the students who was pretending to be a lawyer in this moot court kept arguing after the judge had ruled in his favor. And the law professor who was playing the judge said, Mr. Guarin, I have already ruled in your favor. The only thing you can do is change my mind. Okay. And so I feel like Trump is being a little bit of Mr. Guarin here. And Mark, my guess as to why he's doing it is ego. He wants to be able to say, oh yeah, I won Texas by even more.
You know, I hadn't even thought of that. Short term, that is probably the thing that best serves Trump. Longer term, I'm actually quite concerned about this because this is a phenomenon associated with questioning the elections that really sets up the next argument. And the next argument is associated with all of these legislatures around the country that will begin to question elections if they don't work out for them. It's not just going to be challenging elections after the fact. It may be actually a refusal to certify elections. It's we know about this. We know that there's already a groundswell for this, right? In red states that may actually end up being red states forever if they invalidate vote after vote just because they lose. So while this is short term to Trump's ego perhaps in Texas, I think it's part of a much, much bigger plan to essentially subvert the people's voice. I think it's potentially very, very serious.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's what's been happening with many other things that Trump has been doing. It's a standardization of the madness. I remember before, I mean, we talked about how bad things were under W. Bush, but then Trump comes in and somehow makes things even crazier. And some people harken back to the days of W and go, man, remember when things were normal? No, they weren't normal then either. So this is furthering the insanity. Now, it's specifically working here, I think, to a degree, because we talked last week about how Governor Abbott is getting pressure from the right in some kind of in some primary challenges. So he's thinking, I need to go further to the right and further and further and further to the right. So how much further to the right can you go before we no longer are dealing with any kind of democratic ideals? And if you decide to go back the other way, oh my goodness, you're a radical lib. So the new place is so far to the right that we're no longer the same type of functioning democracy. Now, as part of this, a couple more quotes from this article where Trump is still complaining about the things that Abbott is doing. And Abbott, as we already know, outside of that anti-choice bill that he was passing, they also passed already restrictive voting laws. And they want to go further. So more from the Hill. The bill, which passed in August after a quorum was reached, banned curbside voting. This is the bill that Governor Abbott and those guys did pass. Banned curbside voting, empowered partisan poll watchers, and curtailed the use of drop boxes and many other things. So while Democrats were upset and lambasted this as voter suppression, which is what it was, Trump called it a watered down and called the bill watered down and demanded that Abbott sign legislation to look into his unfounded claims about that last election that we keep talking about. And lastly, he said Texans demand a real audit to completely address their concerns. So you can't go far enough to the right. There's no such thing as far enough to the right. It's further and further and further. And this is his continuing effort to make sure that's the norm.
Yeah, and as I talked about earlier in the show, I think Trump is legitimately crazy. I think that he at least half of it, some of it I think is ego, at least half of it is he thinks, oh, well, if Texas does the audit, they're gonna catch all those illegal immigrants that voted for Biden. Because he believes all of his own conspiracy theories. In the first hour, Trey Crowder made a great point. He said he's such a nuclear level narcissist that he thinks if he said it, it must be true by definition. And so, he keeps waiting for Obama's long form birth certificate to show that he was born in Kenya, and he keeps waiting for those undocumented immigrant votes to show up somewhere, not realizing they're not true. You made them up, Donald Trump. It's like sorry, Mark. It's like when he said he invented the word fake. Like you could see him in that clip thinking, I probably did. It's unbelievable. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, like some sort of bizarre, syphilitic affected king, back in the medieval ages or whatever. As he barks this stuff out, the party does fall in line. It's kind of to JR's point. Everybody sort of falls into lockstep because they can't get in lock enough step with Trump. My big fear on a serious level, I mean, it is lunacy and it is laughable, but it does seem to be affecting public policy in many states. And my fear beyond this is that you make serving in these polling places, which is not a party to begin with. It's most people are volunteers, they're being paid very, very little, and they're doing it out of some sense of public service. You make it you sense a highly partisan environment that could turn violent, and it all of a sudden makes that job of being a poll watcher something you can be prosecuted for in some states if they feel that you're not allowing the right observers the right angle on observing. I mean, so again, it's both hilarious and absurd, and then potentially insanely serious.
Yeah, no, Mark, you're absolutely right. It's definitely both. I mean, look, Larry Elder lost the recall in California by about 2-to-1 margin. It was just an absolute blowout, and they yelled at him for not demanding a recount. Because in their minds, like they really believe that everything is rigged, none of it is true, it's all made up. And if all you had to do is like do a recount, and you'll find out that, and it doesn't matter how many recounts have already been done. Because by the way, when the election first happened, they immediately recounted. In Georgia, they recounted 4 times. They recounted each ballot by hand. But no amount of recounts is gonna do the trick because 1, you can't fix crazy, and 2, this isn't about fixing anything other than elections, meaning they're rigging the elections. If they lose, to Mark's point, in places like Texas, they're just gonna go, oh, this is when we do the recount. Because, and guys, this is not hyperbole. Remember in North Carolina and Wisconsin, when a Democrat won the governorship, the legislatures were still Republicans, and they said, that's it, we're stripping the governor of a lot of his powers. Because if we don't get our way, we'll do anything. We'll cheat, we'll lie, we'll steal, and we'll just take away the governor's powers because we don't care about democracy. We just care about raw power.
Because by the way, as the political spectrum then maybe swings, you always talk about this, how it's gonna swing more and more to the left just because that's the way most Americans think about things. Whether or not they think their party is what supports it, in general, when you ask them directly, even when it came to healthcare, when Obama was in office and they passed that barely anything from healthcare passing, as you ask people, if it was Obamacare that you're in support of, they're like, oh my God, hell no. And when you say, are you in support of actually being able to go see your doctor and not have to sell your house or refinance your mortgage to do so? They went, well, yeah, that'd be great. Because the policies is what people are switching and would be going towards. As Republicans realize that they're nowhere near any of those policies, all that's left is to blow up the system. The only thing left is to put any kind of doubt whether or not the people who are voting for it slowly are voting more and more for these types of things with the new generations that are becoming to vote. They're like, we can't win anymore. And we're not gonna change our principles because we don't have any. So we just have to put some doubt into this and make sure that's the only way we get a chance to win.
Yeah, one last thing, because JR makes such a great point, I wanna build on it. We've talked about the concept of manufacturing doubt before. It's what the tobacco companies originally did. It was their plan. You don't have to convince people that smoking is good for you. You just have to create doubt about whether it's bad for you, right? And so then the oil companies have been doing that brilliantly for decades. You don't have to convince people that oil is good for the planet. You just have to create doubt as to whether it's destroying the planet or not. And that way it freezes people into inaction. So here, what the Republicans are realizing is the same thing that I've been telling you guys all this time. That's what JR alluded to. Under 45-year-olds are voting not just Democrat, but progressive in record numbers. The top Republican pollster, Frank Luntz, back in 2016 did a survey and said younger voters are frighteningly liberal. Frighteningly, he said it should scare the hell out of all Republicans, right? Yeah. Well, mission accomplished, it did. And so what now they're trying to do is manufacture doubt about elections and democracy. And so when you're doing that, it doesn't really matter what your charge is. And it doesn't matter if you're recounting an election 4 times or 5 times, or an election you lost or you won. Because the point is to manufacture doubt so you could then delegitimize the elections and then just come out and say, we won, trust us.
Bravo, that's so well said. And the last thing I would say, just to put a cap on what JR is saying, because he's absolutely right, it's a power grab straight up. But it's not as though they really feel, I suspect in some ways, that they don't have any policies. They feel that they're battling for the soul of America. They really believe that. And so when you're battling for the soul of America, what you feel America really should be, and it's largely a religious jihad in some pockets, all right? But when you're battling in that way, then anything you do is worth it because you're battling for this thing that's so desperately dear to you. And they've lost their way, of course. I mean, it's not the soul of America, but my point is simply that passion and that determination and focus, that's what's driving them toward this end.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.